Can you change your personality? How does peer pressure work? Should you ever really trust your gut? These are just a few of the topics we've recently tackled on my podcast, Something You Should Know. It's a podcast where leading experts give you valuable intel that you can use in your life today. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and with over 1,000 episodes and over 4,000 mostly 5-star reviews, I invite you to check out Something You Should Know, wherever you listen.
DC High Volume, Batman. The Dark Knight's definitive DC Comics stories. Adapted directly for audio for the very first time.
Fear. I have to make them afraid.
He's got a motorcycle. Get after him or I'll have you shot.
You mean blow up the building?
From this moment on, none of you are safe.
New episodes every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Lez Hang Out. And let's talk about what Lez is about. And let's listen to two lesbians shout. Lez Hang Out.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Lez Hang Out, the podcast where we're survivors, we're gonna make it, we will survive, keep on surviving. We hope. That's the dream. From the West Coast, I'm Leigh Holmes Foster. To those of you who have been with us through this whole journey, thank you as always for listening. If you're a new listener, welcome. We're excited to have you here. Here's what's happening this week.
This week in the Lesdom.
This week in the Lesbian is a place where we can touch base each episode about things going on with the podcast or otherwise. In season 8, we are still releasing our Patreon bonus episodes. Our last one was on bros. You can listen to that at bit.ly/lespatreon. We are also doing a big season 8 Patreon campaign push, which will end on July 1st. So you have just a short amount of time to join. We would love to have you there. Patreon is our biggest way that we can afford to create the show, pay Kristen, do all our editing, keeping up with our website, hosting fees,
Paying Ellie and Kristen.
paying our team. And we really need those funds to continue to make the show. And the best way for us to get those is for you to join us and support our Patreon. And in return, we are giving you all kinds of cool perks. At 100 Patreon supporters, you can pick a Should Have Been Gay episode. At 150, we're going to do a live Patreon-only show. And at 200, we're going to do a virtual house party.
We also want to remind you of a couple things. First, we are coming up on the end of our season. Season 8 is drawing to a close soon. So we have a few episodes left. And then, as you know, we will be doing some feed swaps for some of the summer to give a chance for other queer podcasts to get some more airtime, help all of you learn a little bit about some of the other queer podcasts that people are making out there in case they are of interest to you, and give Ellie and I a chance to breathe, regroup, and get a little bit ahead of recording season 9, which will be coming at you before you even know it. So we still have episodes coming out through the first week in July, and then we will have our feed swap episodes through July and most of August. But keep your ears open and keep an eye on our socials for anything else going on with the show. Ellie and I don't just disappear throughout the summer months. We're still here, still working. We also want to remind you that next year in March, we are still planning our trip to France, and there are still some spots available if you would like to sign up now. So March 25th to 31st, 2026. We are going to Paris. We are going to Bordeaux. We are going to be having a great gay time. And you can sign up to join us at bit.ly/LesDoFrance.
In the greater Les universe, DC just hosted World Pride. Me and Kristen were both there, which was very nice to get to spend some time with Kristen. We very rarely see each other in person because we are all virtual team. And of course, it was amazing. Very, very gay, of course. Got to see Cynthia Erivo and also Doechii. Doechii also has been super, super politically vocal lately, which we love for her and queer people everywhere. We cannot stay silent currently. As you all know, we have shifted some shit in our season this year because things are fucked and we cannot not say it. So I feel like for me, seeing Doechii was a highlight. It was amazing. And yeah, happy World Pride to everyone who was there.
And happy Tony Awards to all who celebrate.
Yes.
The Tonys happened recently. Some great gay highlights, obviously. Cynthia Erivo hosting and crushing. I'm saying as a person who, quite honestly, I didn't watch the Tonys this year, but I've seen some of the clips and I know that there were rave reviews. Also, Cole Escola, who won for, I think, Best Lead Actor, right?
Yes, for Oh Mary, which is like a big deal because it's like a fully drag performance.
And who was rocking like an absolute incredible Bernadette Peters throwback shout out look. So, and also throwing shade at Nicole Scherzinger. So,
yes, also made history as the first non-binary Tony winner for lead actor in a play.
Incredible.
Also in the Greater Lez universe, I don't know if anyone has been watching Overcompensating, which is a new TV show written and produced and starring Benito Skinner, but it's all about his real true life story of coming out in college and overcompensating, feeling like he had to act like super straight and butch because he was so gay. And I feel like it is a slightly difficult watch because you're watching this and you're like, oh God, I'm so anxious. And also like a very true and authentic queer representation. Like I was like, I see myself in this shit, like being in the closet in college. It's a rough time, but it's a great show, super well made, very funny at times, and highly relatable. So if you're looking for a new, like easy queer watch, I would highly recommend Overcompensating.
And if you're looking for a new queer read, B.E. Schwab, who I feel like is, like a big book talk name that you hear all the time, just dropped a new book, I think, like this week. It's called Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. And it's about toxic lesbian vampires. And it's supposed to be great. I haven't read it yet. It's going on my to read list immediately. And everyone should check it out and tell us if they liked it.
That's what's happening this week. Back to you, Ellie and Leigh.
Thanks, Ellie and Leigh. We are so excited to bring you episode 21 of season 8. It's Dyke the Dust. And we are joined by a very special guest today. We have Regan Latimer, who is the director of the documentary Bulletproof, A Lesbian's Guide to Surviving the Plot. Regan, thanks so much for being here to hang out with just me tonight.
I mean, you are enough. You are so enough. It's unbelievable how enough you are.
I was desperately debating whether I should make we lost Ellie to a stray bullet in a parking lot somewhere, but I just can't bring myself to make those jokes because they're too real. They hit too close
real.
to home.
Don't put it out into the universe.
I won't.
Don't
I would
do
never. Ellie's just missing. She's having a great time. She's happy and thriving, everyone. Don't stress. Regan and I are going to have a great time talking about all the lesbians who may or may not be happy and thriving and living their best lives.
Yeah.
Regan, tell us a little bit about first. Can you give us the quick pitch of your documentary before we dive into all the nitty-gritty details of it?
Essentially, it's Bulletproof, A Lesbian's Guide to Surviving the Plot. It takes a look at queer representation on television, largely the lesbian side of that. And, the ups and downs in that. And we talk to fans, we talk to TV industry people, we talk to people from the community. So we talk to everyone about what it's been, where it's at now, where it's going, and all that lies within that.
Amazing. As any listeners of the show know, this is fully our jam here at Lez Hang Out. So tell me a little bit about how this became a thing in your life, because it also became a project that sort of spanned drastically more time than anticipated. Yes.
Who could have guessed that? But back in 2016, I think you're old enough to remember. Back in 2016, it was not a good year for queer characters on television, and certainly not lesbian or bi characters on television. And there was a particular show I was watching, The Walking Dead, for anyone who has watched that in the past or still watches it. If it's still on, I don't even know. Why? Because I stopped watching it after this moment happened when they killed off the character. Oh, spoiler alert. Killed off the character of
2016.
Denise.
Yeah, we're not a full decade out, so we probably need to
give a little spoiler alert in
there.
there. If you're still watching it, I apologize. But yeah, they kill off Denise in the most violent, horrible way possible. For those who haven't seen it, she gets an arrow through the back of her head that comes out her eye. Not that I want you to envision that, but that's what happened. And I was sitting on the couch watching it. And that was after already seeing that particular spring, several other characters get it. And that for me was like the clincher of, why does this keep happening? Why is it happening in such great numbers? We really need to do something about this. And I thought, well, I'm a filmmaker, so I guess I could do something about it. And 7 years later, here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah.
So we go down this path of making this whole documentary. And what I love about the documentary is that you sort of have the story of obviously all of these narratives happening, and then also like your own identity journey. So how did you land on like the framework of how you wanted to tell this story? Because it's like, anytime anyone gets into talking about this, I'm always curious as to like, how do you land on the arc? You know, like what's the journey that we're going on together?
Well, I have to be honest with you, the pandemic played a really large role in that, kind of inadvertently. When we were about to leave to go and do interviews outside of Canada is when the pandemic hit. And there is someone in the film who leads a lot of the interviews for me, because I'm very much a behind the camera type of person. And so it was going to be kind of, her story was going to be the arc of the film and her experiences and whatnot. And then the pandemic hit and I couldn't film with her anymore. And then it became, well, we had to keep going with the film. We couldn't just stop because it needed to get done. So then I kind of very reluctantly turned towards my own story to use as that arc. And it, ended up working out quite well, because it's always a lot easier to tell like an authentic, true story that you've experienced yourself, because you know yourself best. So that's where that ended up landing in the doc, was that arc. And also just the amount of time it took us to provided its own arc, because of where we started in 2016 when it started, and then just like representation in television alone, how much that changed over that period of time also gave us a nice arc in which to explore progress. So
it's always funny when you're having discussions like this at a time where it's like, I feel like we had so much progress, and then now we're seeing that sort of trend back down, and we're kind of in this weird in between area right now. Where would you say we're at present day? And maybe I'll just, for context, like to give listeners the context of where we're at. Like, we are recording this the week of The Last of Us giving us like the Ellie Dina Boink Fest episode. So like, where are we at? Where are we at right now?
I mean, okay, so here's my theory on that, especially after it took 6 years to make the film, is there's a pendulum and it swings. And when I started that film, the pendulum was very much to one side. And during the filming of it, it swung lovingly to the other side of not just representation on television, but also, reflective of where queers are at in society, rights, acceptance, all that. It was a very lovely swing of that pendulum. And then, unfortunately, as pendulums do, we're on a backswing right now, would be a kind way of saying it. We're on a very large backswing. However, in terms of representation, what I'm concerned about with where things are at right now, especially in your country, the United States.
We're doing so good right now. I don't even know what you're talking about.
I know. What am I going on about?
Everyone's having a good time.
But especially,
and our therapists have nothing to do these days. Okay.
They must be so bored.
Yeah, they're chill.
Yeah, because of the swing against DEI, especially, and the way we're seeing corporations who either are still trying or those who are like, oh, good, we don't have to do this anymore. What we're seeing on television right now is a result of the good swing, because that's when those series and shows and films and stuff were greenlit. And what I'm worried about is on the backswing we're on right now, what they're deciding to make now and the stories they're deciding to tell now is what we're going to see like in the next couple of years. And I am worried about the backswing that we're likely to see on that. So let's just enjoy Ellie and Dina.
Yeah, let's
well,
enjoy
we
it.
can.
Get
'cause
that
they're
whole
so
hand up there,
lovely.
girl. Just keep
Yeah.
reaching, okay?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's especially, you know what else too? I have to say, I love you calling out the DEI thing because, as many of our listeners must know right now, like there's a lot of commentary in the social media sphere these days of how like apparently DEI was the only duct tape holding our entire country together and keeping everything running. I have this, what I anticipate is extremely correct hunch that we are going to see this swing back of the pendulum in television and movies, and that what we're going to be left with is like the world's most boring years of media for a while until people realize like actually it's done. It's been done. Whatever you're trying to do now has been done.
Yeah.
It's been done. It's probably been done better by someone who wasn't just like a mediocre white man. So we're
well, I mean, the diversity that we got in writers' rooms, we're really going to see how much of that was like real and how much of it was forced.
Yeah.
And that's going to really come out in what we see over the next couple of years. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and I would love to be totally wrong.
I just think we really need more stories of white men rising above the odds.
Oh my God, there aren't enough of those, and that's for sure. And I hope that we do get a lot more. Wait. I don't want to even take this out of context.
That's what we're gonna clip and put on TikTok. Actually, it's sentence.
Damn it! The expose with Regan. I knew it.
I just finished telling you we don't want gotcha moments, and I'm like, got her.
Yeah, so I guess we're gonna see what happens. But it's funny how we're seeing, especially with all like, I mean, I don't know what it's like particularly where you live, but the amount of corporate sponsorship around things like Pride and stuff like that, you know, we're going to see how much of that sticks around.
Oh, it's already, listen, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I can already tell you, like, Pride this year is gearing up to be real interesting because I think they've already seen announcements from like the Google, the Meta, the LinkedIn, like a bunch of places that it is like a double-edged thing because obviously they pour a ton of money into the Pride that like SF Pride that happens in the area, but then also it becomes an extremely capitalistic, sanitized corporate experience in a lot of ways, and
it gives them the power over it as well.
Yes, and then the parade is just like, here's 700 Google employees who all really love gay people. Yeah. I'm actually really curious to see what that's going to be like this year because I think it's going to land in a weird place that I think will be a lot less funded, but a lot more authentic in some ways.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well, actually. I'm hoping that it maybe gets a little more back to its roots, especially with what's happening. I mean, certainly around the world, definitely in the US right now, but it's not isolated to the US. There's been such a swing to the right in so many places.
Yeah.
So it might be kind of good to maybe get some of the corporate money out and get back to the more, march for rights that it started as. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
Would be the dream. But yeah, it is. I agree that I think we're seeing a lot of the, it's going to highlight a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's going to highlight a lot of stuff for us. Representation, surely one of those areas where it's funny because there is always like, I mean, like with everything, there's going to be this lag time of it, and
that's
so
why
I feel like
we're getting good things like Ellie and Dina right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see where we're at in a year or two.
How could they take that out, right? I mean, an integral part of the plot of the game and stuff.
I don't know if you played the game.
I, again, didn't, but know enough.
So I loved the games.
Yeah.
Loved the games. And I very much love the way they have changed certain aspects of the game, inclusive of Ellie and Dina's relationship in the series, which gives us more to enjoy. So
Say, like, which things? Well, this one we can give, like, full spoiler alerts if you're not caught up or if you haven't played I don't even know.
I know, but, like,
spoiler alerts, we're going to talk about
I know where it's going.
Okay.
So I don't want to give any spoiler alerts to episodes that haven't aired yet.
Okay.
So there are things I would like to say, but I don't want to ruin it for anyone because I'm sure there are lots of people who are enjoying the show who don't know the game necessarily. But
that's okay. Sure. You're saying you don't want to spoil based on your knowledge of the game episodes for people. Yes. Okay.
Which
sort
may
of like
or may
how,
not happen.
sort of
I
like
don't know
how spoiler alerts for this season of Last of Us, like people who were shocked when Joel died, and you were like, "Oh no, honey."
Yeah, it's like that was less shock. I loved the way they did it.
Yeah,
but it wasn't shocking, which is too bad. I think I would like to enjoy the story for the first time, but I've played the game several times, if I'm being honest. I love the game, but I do love the changes they've made in their relationship presently in the show. I don't know where that's going to go. Spoiler alert. Nope, I'm just going to
spoilers. Stop. Nope. Okay, we're going to... This section actually will just be fully bleeped out.
Okay, perfect.
It's just 5 minutes of
yeah, if it was written down on a sheet of paper, it would be all like redacted. So, yeah.
Perfect. The U.S. government approach to podcasting, you can't hear any of it, actually. It's not for you.
Yeah.
That would, honestly, how funny would it be, though, one time to just, like, release an episode and just bleep the whole thing?
Right?
Just be like, you'll never know what we talked about, but
and
it
then,
was awesome.
Bleep. Yeah, it was so good. Yeah, one day.
It was the best. Okay, so no spoilers coming here, but it did. You know what's sad, though, is the thing about it is these days, I really feel like I mean, I am old enough to remember 2016 vividly, and sometimes I feel like I've time traveled. Because in the way that I feel like we had a number of years not that long ago where Ellie and I felt like we could barely keep up with like the onslaught of sudden queer media representation. As two people who have a podcast largely focused on queer rep in the media and who tried to keep up with everything, and it almost felt it was like fire hose levels, of just like doing our best. And now I'm like, oh, a second show actively airing of queer characters? I feel like I've gone back to a time pre the climb that we'd had, where you were kind of like, wow, there's a whole I can count on both hands number of us on the screen these days. And like, it's kind of, I know it's not that low, and some of it is just that there are continuing storylines in shows that like I hadn't had time to get into a couple of years ago, and I don't have all the time to catch up now. And so it's like there are shows that I know I'm not watching that do still have representation in them, but like it feels fewer and farther between than it has in a long time.
Well, that's the pendulum, right?
Yeah.
That's the pendulum swing. And really, when you look at 2016, even though it was a slaughter, you have to look at, wow, we had that many characters to kill off in the first place was pretty amazing considering what came before it. Like that really was kind of like a height of so many options. And then as the pendulum does, it swings. So yeah.
That's true. I'm curious though, because I feel like I know Denise was a big one for people. What was it that made that one why was that? Because I know that wasn't right. Like that wasn't your first queer character.
No,
death.
and she wasn't a huge character either.
No, but I know how that. I mean, there's a number of deaths in Walking Dead that sort of just give you that kind of thing. But I'm curious, what was it about that sort of became the final nail in the coffin of dead lesbians for you? That was like, I'm done.
I think it was because, I mean, you couldn't have gotten more tropey than what they did. And to be fair, I love that actress. So I loved her being on that show. Just the fact that they gave us the moment before that where one of them says, I love you. And the other one says, I will tell you when you get back. And she doesn't say it. And then she finally realizes it, is literally like yelling it at these other characters and realizes that, yes, she does love her. And yes, that's okay. And it was like this profession of love. And then the most violent death. And yes, I realize it's The Walking Dead. And I realize that they love their violent deaths. I mean, we don't have to talk about Glenn. That was horrible.
Yeah.
But it was just the fact that they, to be fair, the other partner in that relationship ends up with her head on a pike in that show as well. I realize anyone can die, but it was just like it took so long for those characters to reach that moment in the first place. And then to never have that catharsis of them getting to have that moment with one another and then just being killed off. And I'd already watched several deaths that spring. So it was all just kind of adding up. There was another one, a British show. Oh, what was it? And that one was also for me I just had had enough. Like I think it was just the onslaught was just too much. And that for me was the final straw. Yeah.
We all have that one that was just the tipping point for us, you know?
Yeah. And it varies, right? Like it depends how invested you are in the show. And I'm not saying I was that heavily invested in The Walking Dead, but it was like after years of watching that show and there not really being much representation at all for them to have finally brought it in and then to have ended it before it even really got started in a real way was just a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it always is a little bit of a slap in the face, but sometimes it's
okay.
Yeah.
But I was just saying this the other day. We did a Q&A. We were just in London and there was a Q&A after that screening. And I was asked what, one of my favorite storylines was.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite ones does not end well for them.
Okay.
But they gave us so much in the show. It was a limited series to begin with. It was The Haunting of Bly Manor. Did you see that?
Yes,
okay.
I did.
Haunting of Bly Manor. So
Spoiler alert for the show, The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Alert. To be fair, it's, part horror, whatever.
Sure.
And I don't like scary things, but when I heard about this relationship in the show, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to watch it. And then we got so much story and development of this couple over the course. Like it was a limited series, so it's not like there was going to be much of a future for it anyway. But we got so much story over the course of those 6, 8 episodes. I can't remember how long it was, and a whole episode that showed their relationship over time. And although, spoiler alert, it doesn't end well for them, it is such a beautifully told story of their relationship that I still love it. Which, in comparison to like The Walking Dead, they didn't get that at all. So it hurts all the more because there was nothing satisfying about it. Whereas with Bly Manor, it was,
it's
I
rough.
love that story.
I love it. I want to talk more about it. We're going to hear real quick from some sponsors. And then, because this is actually bringing up a topic I want to dive even more into. So we'll be right back. So the thing that I love about this, because I always think it's interesting when you talk to queer people, especially queer people who are like deeply invested in media representation. I love Bly Manor because Bly Manor, I think, is such a quintessential example for me of the character deaths that we will allow. And the fact that I think like there are, and this can be polarizing because I know that there are people who are like, nope, you can't kill gays. There's no acceptable reason. There's no acceptable storyline. We need some time without it. I personally don't feel that way, but I am always curious, what are the ones that people find acceptable? And to me, I agree. I think Bly Manor is a great example of a death where I'm like, you get a pass.
Yeah.
I'll grant you a buy on this one, Mike Flanagan. You'll get it, fine. But I'm curious what makes it that for you.
The quality of the story that we got. Another good example of that is San Junipero, the Black Mirror episode San Junipero, where yes, they do die in the end, but the story that we got over the episode was very satisfying. And they gave me enough.
But they also die and get married, and it lands in a weird, it's a liminal space ending, right?
Yeah, it's like, did they die?
Spoiler alerts for Sandra. I should have just put a thing at the beginning of the episode saying we're going to ruin everything if you haven't watched everything, don't listen.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. Yeah. So really, it's the quality of the story that we got.
Yeah.
Like the 100 with Lexa and Clark.
We're both crossing ourselves as we say her holy name.
Exactly.
Yeah. Saint Lexa. Great.
With them, and similar to Denise, is that you never got satisfaction from their relationship. It's like you got the longest tease ever, like with the 100. I guess it wasn't the longest, but it was pretty long. And then they finally
how many
get
seasons?
together.
That was 3-4 seasons in, right?
Yeah. So, but we never got there. It was like all anticipation and no. We're not going to use
the
that
edging
metaphor,
of queer
but,
character relationships.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, that line is, did they give me enough to enjoy it because every showrunner and writer will have a justification for the death. Sometimes it's a mechanic of the story that they just it has to happen. But it's not even necessarily the amount of story you get. It doesn't have to be terribly long, but for me, it has to be a whole experience. You can't be, trailing me along and then just ditch me without getting me there. Oh no, all these metaphors are awful. But I think you know what I'm saying. Yeah. So
for
me,
our
it is the
younger
quality of the
listeners,
story.
you absolutely can, take as long as you need to.
There's no finish line.
Whatever floats your boat. The ending isn't the point. Sorry, what are we talking about? Where are we?
What were we talking about? When did I start this podcast?
What's happening?
So it's hot in here. To me, I think it's less about quantity and more about quality. If the story is told well, I'm not going to get mad. But if I'm trying not to use bad metaphors, but
if
it's a well-told
hanging,
story,
unsatisfied, unfulfilled.
Like the things that I'm upset about, the characters that I get really upset about is because you didn't finish. Like you didn't give them an opportunity to finish in any satisfactory way.
There's no way to do it.
God, this is going downhill fast. Yeah,
you didn't give them an opportunity to really blow the load of their storyline wide open. Yeah, gotcha.
Correct. Yeah,
I hear what you're saying.
that's what it is for me. So even if it's a limited story, it's making sure that you've given enough to the characters so that they are a 3-dimensional relatable person, as opposed to just a swinging in for a few episodes and swinging out, which I feel like we've kind of moved past the guest star gay. Hopefully it stays that way, but with how things are going right now, who knows how that'll end up. But we do have a lot more regular queer characters than we used to have. So I don't know. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
We coming back to the Sweeps Week, the 2026 Sweeps Week gays dying in parking lots? I mean,
yeah, I hope not. I hope that I'm hoping for the representation to expand beyond a lot of the stories that we tend to get around queer characters, like the coming out storyline, which is like, coming out is very important, 100%, absolutely. But we need to see what happens after that.
Yeah.
Like what happens in their lives after that. I say and yeah, we do have Grey's Anatomy, because I used to say it'd be great to just have a doctor who is queer, and their storyline is that they're being sued for malpractice, and it has nothing to do with their queerness at all. That I think is more the goal, is to tell queer stories of just everyday queer lives where queerness isn't what it is all about, because my everyday life isn't just about being gay.
Mine is, I actually leave the house in a full rainbow 3-piece suit every single day.
Okay, well that makes sense.
And that's all I do is talk about being gay.
Right. Perfect. Yeah.
I assume that's how everyone listening to this show pictures me at all times. And if it's not,
I certainly did. Crime. I mean, this really comes as a surprise.
Yes, I'm in rainbow right now, just so everyone knows.
Yeah.
The TikTok clip will be me saying that dressed in the extremely boring beige outfit I'm in.
Perfect.
Yeah. Great. So no, it's so true. I am curious though, because I wonder either in your experience with like doing these interviews, or even just in the experience of like having conversations with people, possibly straight people, over the
Mm.
course of like the many, many years that you've been working on this.
Mm.
Do you find yourself, because this is a conversation I have all the time with people, straight people especially, is like having to explain the importance of queer representation? Because I know you have, like, the intro is all very heavy on that, right? Like, sort of
Mhm.
explaining why queer characters matter, why how do people relate to the media in a general sense, and like that's not there for no reason, right?
Mhm. I do try to kind of sum it up in the intro so that everyone is starting this film on the same page of an understanding of what the issue I'm about to talk about is. But something that was a major goal with this film was to make a film that would be watchable and accessible to a non-queer audience, because I am terribly guilty of living in my queer bubble
Mm-hmm.
and forgetting that the things that, you know, seem like big issues to me, once you leave that queer bubble, people are not even aware of. Like, I've had several straight people watch it and come to me afterwards and say, I had no idea. Like,
Yeah.
you don't say. Yeah. So I do try to explain the issue pretty quick and then tell the story in, like, I'm sure you saw I use humor quite a lot
Mhm.
as a way of telling this story and these issues, because I wanted to make it accessible to a non-queer audience who, if you just hit them over the head with, this is happening, this is awful, then they
Mhm.
tune out, because they don't necessarily get it, because that's just not their world. But if you tell it to them like in a fun, enjoyable way, then it's like, oh, okay, yes, I get it. I see it now. And I always tell people, be careful, because once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
What do you find to be the most relatable ways of explaining that to the, crossing myself again, straights?
straights. Yeah, that's why I used the comedy. I used, I'm sure as you saw, the animated character of Sally, who's
Mhm.
very much a throwback to like the 1950s, to try and kind of appeal to an
Hey, boomers.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And is otherwise still fun and enjoyable for people of all ages. But yeah, that was kind of the road I was using to reach those other audiences. And they so far I've gotten positive feedback from that. And, oh, I understand the issues now. And no, I see that that's important. And so that does seem to be going in the right direction. So fingers crossed we, get the message out in a wider way. But yeah.
It's always one of the conversations that like I love having, and yet I'm always still surprised about, because there's something so funny to me about the way that everyone understands representation. Everyone understands the importance of media, the importance of like your favorite movie, your favorite TV. Like boomers are going to act like they didn't hold a national day of mourning when MASH ended, right? And yet somehow then you say, and queer people specifically care about queer representation. And they're like, what? I don't understand. And it's just always so fascinating to me, the way that you have to kind of like connect those two dots to that for them, and you're like, it's one dot.
It's one dot, but it's like when everything is geared towards you, not you, but you, the
mythical straight person in our minds that we're talking to right now. Yeah.
Correct. That is the one. When everything is geared towards you and you've never had to think about it, when queer people are making a big deal about that, it's like, why are you being so dramatic?
Yeah.
Why is that? Because they don't have our experience of what we have experienced in terms of not seeing ourselves. They see themselves all the time and they don't know what it is to not have that.
Yeah.
So that is something the film is hoping to kind of address and show and have help to understand that experience.
Yeah. That's I always ask, like when I'm having that conversation and someone really doesn't get it, I'll always just say like, I'm sure you've watched a TV show with like a queer person in it, and they're like, oh yeah, and like they love to, like if they've watched something, they love to tell you about it.
Like Will and Grace.
Like Will
I
and
love
Grace,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'll always say, like, have you ever watched a show without any straight people in it? Just none. No straight people.
So basically, you want them to watch either Queer as Folk or The L Word.
Yeah, there's straight people in those shows. That's what I'm saying. Is like even the gayest show you can think of, there's a straight person in it. Like I'll always ask, like, have you ever watched a show where there legitimately was not a single character that you felt represented by, like a single person that you were like, there I am on that screen? Like, have you ever watched a show? And they're always trying to like think of one as though they're going to do it.
Yeah.
You
Like,
know,
good luck.
there's
Keep
always
thinking.
that brief pause where they're like short circuiting up, like, because they're just like, what do you? It feels
out of
like
the realm of
like talking
understanding.
to like a Dalek in Doctor Who, and they're like, explain, and you're like, right? I could name hundreds.
Yeah.
I could name hundreds of examples for you because there's actually a ton of shows that don't have queer people in them, right? Like surely that's fairly common, actually, right?
Yeah, but they also don't see that as an issue.
No, they don't. But I mean, granted, it's not like I'm usually having this conversation with people who are like aggressively antagonistic to queer people. They just don't understand why I care so much about having
that is
queer
often
characters.
the thing, is that they don't understand the degree to which this affects us and why.
Yes. And it comes out in weird ways, because then sometimes you have to explain about, like, I literally had this conversation with one of my coworkers again yesterday about why have I watched, and apologies to the listeners who will all have already heard me tell this story not that long ago, I believe, but the fact that like the number of foreign daytime soap opera shows that I watched during the like, especially like the writers strike years, circa, like 2008 to 20 whatever, like the number of shows that, like, the number of languages we all picked up. But I was explaining to one of my German coworkers where I was like, oh yeah, Hand aufs Herz, and she was like, right, why? And I'm like, well, there weren't any gay characters here, so I was watching Spanish shows and German shows and Mexican shows, and it's like we're all, I'm like, we're all like a walk-in Duolingo by the end of this 5-year period where there just wasn't anything to watch. And it's like, and sometimes you tell those stories and they're like, so I don't understand why you cared that much.
Yeah, there's never an understanding of why it's so affecting. But yeah, there's a whole segment in the film about the science behind that and why it is so affecting to us, which was one of the most interesting parts of making this film, was to learn about that, to realize, oh, we're not weird for feeling that way. It's actually science. Yeah.
I'm perfectly well adjusted, and I think everyone should know that that's according to science.
Yeah.
You can learn more in this documentary
characters
about how well adjusted I am.
Right.
True story. No, but it's not weird. It's not weird to want to see ourselves, and it's not weird to want to see ourselves not only die horribly.
Yeah.
That's not a weird thing, right?
It's not even that. It's the way in which media affects us, which is not even within our control necessarily. Like, there are forces at work that we do not control, and there are reasons we feel the way that we feel. I mean, talking to Dr. Aidan Hirschfield was extremely validating, and learning all of the science behind media psychology and the way it affects us was fantastic. That was one of the best parts.
Yeah. I think it's so cool to like get to dig into some of that stuff, right? Because
that was the best part by far, because I also, it's like, sometimes it's like, talking in an echo chamber when you're talking about queer characters and their effects and everything. But when I discovered media psychology, and Aidan, and talked to a psychotherapist about all of the literal scientific brain stuff that is going on in our heads that give it a reason to be so affected by it. Like, it's not just craziness. And it affects straight people in the same way, just about, they're little straight characters. So yeah, it affects us. It affects us all. But
I just want everyone to know the little hand wavy motion that went along with that was so good.
Like
just their
it
little
affects
hetero
them in the
characters.
same
It's fine.
way, but because they have so many, it's not as pertinent as it is for us who only really have a handful to choose from. And, there's as much diversity in the queer population as there is in the straight population in terms of characters that you can relate to. So that drops down the amount of characters to an even fewer pool that you personally can identify with. So the numbers are not in our favor, frankly.
Yeah. Especially not these days, all
No.
12 characters we have.
Yeah, it's not like it was in the heyday.
It's really not. It's a little bleak. We'll get there. I'm choosing to believe the pendulum's going to swing back, and those of us who have lived through the dearths in the past of we know it is going to come back around. But man, it's these times of the famines in between, they do they get.
This is
rough.
a super hard swing. I mean, it's certainly swung before, but I mean, this one where like literal rights are being rolled back. Yeah, that's a little bit terrifying, unfortunately. So I hope it swings back. I hope it doesn't take an even longer amount to swing back because of how far it's gone. But we'll see.
It is. And you know what's funny? You know what I was thinking about at some point when I was watching it is like one thing that I do think is interesting that I don't know how I want to feel about this because I'm a little conflicted on it. But one thing that I do think is interesting and I don't know how that's going to play out in the next few years. But one thing that I was thinking about that's like so different now compared to like the early Hays Code years and like all this stuff, it's like so many other times in the past, like even like a decade or two ago, that I think is vastly different now that I don't think we've accounted for fully is reality television. Because reality television, so prominent, problematic in many ways, whatever. This is why I'm conflicted about it. But also, identities are not the same as they were, and especially are not the same in like the younger millennial Gen Z age crowd, where I'm like, they're not hiding the way that like, it's not like, sure, your real world cast members were not devoid of gay people 20 years ago, but they weren't necessarily always out, especially not while the episodes were airing. Like it could be a little hit or miss. I think there were a lot of people who were sort of like closeting up fully and stuff. And I'm like, that's not the same these days, And so I'm like, even as our scripted things are clearly getting, just dry board, eraser, squeaky, all the gays disappearing on it, I think there's still going to be actually this weird enclave of visible queer people in our reality television shows. I mean, in a way that I'm like, I don't know how I feel about it, but it's there.
I will see.
We'll see.
If that gets to last.
And I'm saying that, and now watch, like the next ad I see is going to be like, "Welcome to Hetero Island," So like, I don't know.
No, it's interesting because the younger people, like there are a whole generation, if not two generations of younger people that are so far removed from the experience that the older generation
they didn't suffer the way we suffered.
And I think the states right now might be headed in a direction where, well, they might get a taste of that because it's so open. It's so out there. It's not like it's discussed, like gender identity. Like there was no gender identity when I was younger. There was that phrase didn't even exist. Like we live in a world now that is so much more opened up than when I was their age, and they don't have the experience of not having that. So it will be interesting to see how far the pendulum swings in terms of if they're going to experience anything like that.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Listen, once again, as a conflicting thing that I'm just going to say out loud and let it be what it is, you also have to remember that this is a generation of kids in the US who have grown up either being actively shot at in their schools or like having that hanging omnipresent over them. And like, they're a little less easily coerced. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're scrappy fighters, man. Like, I'm not saying this is as necessarily a good thing because that's obviously an insane thing to say. I'm just saying, like, I don't think that they're not afraid. Let's put it that way. Like,
I think they don't know yet that they should be.
That's 100% also true. Yes. But I will say, like, there is a sort of fight and resilience and like spirit that I think is just different. Like, it is just, they are made of different stuff than like we are, and for completely different reasons, right? Like, I think there's different strengths to all of the different generations of the gays now, and I'm just saying I do think that is one of them. And my guess is we're gonna see it play out in weird ways in reality television.
Well, I'm
this is my hope for where we're at right now, because I do think we're gonna have a drastic drop off of queer characters in a lot of stuff. But I think
God, let that not be
Hetero
made
Island
up by...
notwithstanding.
Please let that not be made up by reality television.
Hey, listen, we gotta take what we can get.
See, therein lies the problem.
Therein lies at least one of the many problems of reality television.
Totally.
But it is possibly going to be what it is, because I just think, like, I have seen so many more queer storylines about, like, related to or involving like queer people on reality shows, I feel like, these days.
But in a nice, authentic way, and not in a...
No, I mean both. Obviously, it's a mix.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a mix. I said it was conflicting, Regan. I didn't say it was great news. Okay,
that's right.
I didn't say this as a necessarily good, fully good thing. I'm just saying that, like, whereas I feel like when Ellie and I started this podcast, even, that you would get a lot of our... Because, like, we record... kind of like, here's what's happening in like the queer world these days stuff that we put in at like the top of the episode. And when we started this, I feel like we used to record a lot of things that were like, this person from this reality season that aired 2 years ago was finally spotted with their girlfriend, right? Like, you'd get a lot of those stories where people were still coming out like years after.
Yeah.
And now you're like, these two contestants who are clearly fucking on this show, like, here's all the hot drama. And it's like, there just has been a noticeable shift. There's been a shift. It's definitely there. I don't know where that lands us, and I don't know what it means, and I don't know how I feel about it. I'm just saying it's there.
It is. Reality TV has long been there, but I don't feel that our stories are being told in
represented by... No, I mean, of course not. Sure.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. I'm just throwing
like, I
it
feel
out
like
there.
we got way more out of I don't know if you watched it. I'm assuming you did. A League of Their Own.
Mm-hmm.
The TV series was...
I'm crossing myself for a third time. Yes.
Yeah. That was one of the first shows I saw that had a wealth of diversity within its diversity.
Yeah.
My cat has joined us. Sorry.
But your cat came in ass first also, which I really appreciate.
She's got style. Yeah, A League of Their Own, which is part of the movement from the bury your gays to the cancel your gays, is the realm that we seem to be in now. But it was like such a large swath of representation in one show that made losing that show all the worse.
No, that.
Okay.
And you know what's funny is, like, it wasn't even like the show never did a bury your gays. It was like the whole show ending the way that ended was like somehow cut deeper. Deeper than just a character death, especially with the whole like, it's coming back. It's coming back for like a really short season. It's not coming back at all.
That was the worst.
Awful.
Toying with my emotions.
Yes. It was rough. It was rough for so many reasons. Yes, and look, if I could choose between like one more episode of A League of Their Own or like and never having a queer person on a reality show again, like, yeah, of course, give me that one sweet
I mean,
episode.
there is a place for reality shows. It's just not.
Yeah, but if I had to pick what I want to watch, I'd just watch that one episode over and over again for the rest of my life. That's fine. That's fine. Give me one.
Wow.
One good one. Oh, it's a lie. Queer reality dramas is addictive and terrible, but you get so sucked in. But I fully agree. I'm just curious to see where stuff is going to go, because it is. We're at a weird place right now, and I feel like it is. There, to me, honestly, there is something nice about documentaries like Bulletproof, because I think it's a good reminder of the distance we've already traveled, and like where we have gotten to. And like, yes, we're on kind of the backswing right now, but like, even with the backswing, like, we're not in the, 1980s, here's this week's gay character dying of AIDS, Yeah. That just was so, like, everything. I mean, it was just, that was the rep. Here's the
It was, yep.
terrible death that you're gonna get in this movie. Here's the suicide in that movie. Here's the getting beaten to death of this storyline. And you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. So we're not there.
No, we've definitely come a long way, and I hope for us to keep coming a long way. We'll see what plays out over the next few years. Hopefully we're not left with nothing. I don't think we will be.
We shan't be. We refuse to let it happen.
Okay, perfect.
Any last quick things you want to say about the documentary before we dive into our Q and Gays?
I mean, I'm excited. It's actually an exciting time for this documentary to be out, because it is such an interesting time in the world right now. There was a point when I was making the doc where I thought, is this even going to be relevant anymore? And I mean, unfortunately, yes, it is. So, still relevant, a good time to see it. And, hopefully the pendulum's going to swing back real soon.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed on that front.
Exactly.
Okay, let's dive in to our Q and Gays.
Q and Gay.
Question 1.
Okay.
A nice softball. What sapphic death hit you the hardest? Out of A, Lexa, B, Denise, C, Tara, or D, Sylvia? Drawing from some of my own trauma here as well, just for fairness.
Sylvia from
Los Hombres de Paco.
Okay, I thought so.
Yes.
God, that one.
Spoiler alert for Los Hombres de Paco. She gets shot on her wedding day, and it's awful in a wedding dress soaked with blood
against the white was really fantastic.
Jarring.
So, sorry, which was most traumatic?
Which hit you the hardest?
Lexa, Denise, Sylvia, or who was the other one?
Tara from Buffy.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go with Tara, simply because she was the first most horrible, impactful, ruined my life death. And all the others you mentioned came after, which, maybe I was slightly more prepared for them, or at least like not shocked, more expecting it. Although that wedding day, that was a terrible one.
It's bad, right?
It's bad.
I'm right there with you. I'm suffering again talking about it.
Yeah, it was awful. But it's going to be Tara, because I was young and she was like the first long story relationship build up that we got, which was, and we got great moments in that relationship. It just unfortunately had to end the way it did. But that was really the first solid relationship and the really painful death of it.
Spoiler alert for Buffy circa 2000.
For those who haven't seen that yet. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, question 2. Okay. Now I'll really give you the softball. Did queer representation help you find your own identity? Yes or no?
Yes.
See, we don't want to go hard hitting every time,
We don't need to delve any deeper in that.
Okay, question 3.
Yeah, it absolutely did.
Where is the pendulum of I'm going to try that word again. Where is the pendulum of representation for you right now? A, high, B, middle, or C, low?
Oh, I think we're still at the very least middle. We haven't hit the low yet. We will.
Okay. It's coming.
We're going
Don't
to.
worry.
It's
Don't
coming.
worry.
But right now, we should just enjoy the Ellie Dina-esque stories that we are currently getting and cross our fingers that we continue to get them.
Let gays fuck during the apocalypse. Okay.
Yeah.
Question 4.
Okay.
What's worse for gay characters out of this cheerful list?
Oh, God.
A,
Yeah.
A, violent death. B,
Hmm.
inconsequential death. C,
Hmm.
cliche death. Or D, death while at their happiest.
It's
It's
the
a real
most
buffet of
depressing
good
list
choices.
I've ever heard in my life.
You're welcome.
I mean, to break it down, when they're happy, at least they got the happiness before they died. Inconsequential, I'm not sure that they largely suffer from inconsequential because they do usually happen to, at the very least, move someone else's storyline along. So there is a overall reason for it, even though it is meaningless. What was the first and the third?
Violent death or cliche death?
Sometimes 2 and 1.
Yes. There is a secret all of the above option,
Yeah,
I'm sure,
yes.
for many of these, but you know.
Right. I think the violent death.
That's fair.
Because it's like the wedding dress covered in blood.
Yeah.
It stays with you.
It's
It
bad.
stays with you.
It's real
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Okay, question 5, last question.
Okay.
Where do you expect we'll find the most queer rep in the next few years? A, TV or movies. B, books. C, fan fiction. Or D, reality TV.
I mean, has it not empirically always been fan fiction? There is always more in fan fiction than in just the shows, because then, we get characters that weren't even gay being gay. So I'm leaning towards more the writing of the fan fiction and or in books, because there is more freedom in both of those mediums. I mean, there's been some great books that have come out. Heather Hogan is my go-to person for book recommendations.
Yes.
And, there is a lot to choose from, which is fantastic. TV, we're still, we have more, but we're still pretty limited in our choice per se. But yeah, literature is a bigger field, a
Heather
bigger, enjoyable
Hogan,
field.
Also a holy name in this household.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So there you go.
She's amazing. So yeah, I enjoy her book recommendations amongst many Heather Hogan things, but yeah, that for sure.
Incredible. Remember, listeners, you can give us your own answers to this episode's Q&A questions on our Instagram at Lez Hang Out Pod. Regan, thank you again so much for hanging out. Let all of our listeners know where they can find you on all the social medias, where they can find the documentary, and where they might have options to watch it coming up.
Okay. So you can follow the documentary on Instagram and Facebook at Bulletproof Doc. I'm on Instagram at the Regan Latimer. And lucky Canadians.
In so many ways.
In so many ways, we will be streaming in Canada starting in June. You can go to our website, bulletproofdoc.ca, for the details, and our Instagram will be announcing all the news on there, and hopefully we'll be coming to wider release shortly thereafter. You'll just have to stay tuned for that news.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of a million VPNs starting up, actually. It's weird how loud it is,
Isn't that odd? I always thought it was silent, but no.
Yeah, no. It's like old school dial-up. It's loud,
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. What a joy to dig into all of this with you.
Well, thank you so much. I had a good time.
We love hearing from all of you. We love continuing to build this community. So we just want to shout out some of our favorite things every episode. And this week we want to shout out YouTube user Caitlin Smith, who commented on our throwback to our Renegade covers on As Long As You're Mine, saying perfect soundtrack for Wicked. And listen, you're so true. We should all be living our best gay Wicked lives right now as we all wait in, horrified, impatient suffering for the second half to come out.
Can't wait. Elakanamen namen atimatum elkanamen,
As I always say.
Yes. As always, want to thank our Lesbian Jesus patrons, Mark Foster,
Lizette Stye,
Adi Benitez,
Sophia Phillips,
and Armani Gucci.
And our King Princess patrons, Amy and Ellen.
And Andrea Doucette. Thank you so much. We truly could not continue to make the show without you.
Remember, you can find us on all social medias. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, and TikTok at Lez Hang Out Pod.
You can email us at lezhangoutpod@gmail.com.
You can check out our website at lezhangoutpod.com.
Whatever app you use for podcasts, make sure you subscribe so you'll be the first to know when new episodes drop.
We also have videos going up on our YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe at youtube.com/lezhangoutpod to catch those.
Lez Hang Out is an independently produced show hosted by us with audio production by me. Our production assistant is Kristen Murison, and other podcasting shenanigans by Leigh Holmes Foster.
If you want to help support the podcast, the first thing you can do is leave us a rating and a review on whatever app you use to listen to podcasts. It helps new people find the show.
And if you want to help us fund this season and future seasons, the best way to do that is to join us on Patreon at bit.ly/lespatreon. We have 30 Patreon bonus episodes for you. So if we're going on our hiatus very soon and you're like, I'm going to miss Lez Hang Out, don't worry. You have 30 bonus episodes if you join our Patreon at bit.ly/lespatreon.
If you want to pick up some Lez Hang Out merch, there is no better time than Pride to check out all of our designs. You can find them on our new store at bit.ly/lesmerch.
And remember, we have a queer production company making queer podcast musicals with guaranteed happy endings that you can find everywhere at $dollarbeanprod.
You can also check out our website, dollarbeanproductions.com.
You can listen to all of the episodes of our first show, The Flame, on any podcasting app, and our second show, Journey to the Heart, also on any podcasting app.
And if you want to help support us in making more musicals, you can join our Patreon at bit.ly/dollarbeanpatreon.
If you want to find us individually, you can find me at Ellie Brigida on Instagram and TikTok.
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at LSH Foster.
With that, I'm Ellie.
And I'm Leigh.
And let's hang out again soon.
Let's hang out.
I'm Amy Nicholson, the film critic for the LA Times.
And I'm Paul Scheer, an actor, writer, and director. You might know me from The League, Veep, or my non-eligible for Academy Award role in Twisters.
We love movies, and we come at them from different perspectives.
Yeah, like Amy thinks that, Joe Pesci was miscast in Goodfellas, and I don't.
He's too old. Let's not forget that Paul thinks that Dune 2 is overrated.
It is.
Anyway, despite this, we come together to host Unspooled, a podcast where we talk about good movies, critical hits,
fan favorites, must-sees, and in case you missed them.
We're talking Parasite to Home Alone.
From Grease to The Dark Knight.
We've done deep dives on popcorn flicks. We've talked about why Independence Day deserves a second look.
And we've talked about horror movies, some that you've never even heard of, like Ganja and Hess.
So if you love movies like we do, come along on our cinematic adventure.
Listen to Unspooled wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget to hit the follow button.